Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And today's range report is on a really odd looking firearm, the CP33 from Kel-Tec. And yeah, it's a Kel-Tec. And I really should be wearing gloves holding this thing because I don't want it to contaminate me or the rest of my firearms collection. You guys know that I am not a huge Kel-Tec fan. I honestly have always thought the Kel-Tecs were pieces of junk, and I have had bad experiences in the past with Kel-Tec firearms literally falling apart on the range as I'm shooting them. And you also know that there are many other gun reviewers that don't like Kel-Tecs, not because they are not innovative or forward-thinking or have unique designs. It's because they're assembled very poorly. Now, I know there's a lot of people that are subscribers to my channel that will disagree with me, and that is okay. Maybe they love Kel-Tec, and maybe they've had very positive experiences with them. I personally haven't, and after handling good quality firearms, I look at the construction of these guns and go, it's just not assembled correctly. So, for example, these frames are two pieces, and they are bolted together. Most firearms do not have bolts that hold the frame together. In fact, military contracts specifically state you cannot have any screws or bolts holding the guns together. Everything has to be put together with pins. And so having that type of construction just screams cheap to me. Now, I always want to be honest with you guys. I always tell all of my biases before I review a pistol, so I have already laid it out there. I am not a huge Kel-Tec fan. But does that mean I'm going to trash this gun? No, it does not mean that. But I always am honest with you. So maybe you've already turned off the video or are about to turn off the video. That is fine. But please know that I give my biases beforehand. I just don't review a gun and then you figure out, oh, he hates Kel-Tec. I tell you up front, I'm already going into this review possibly a little bit biased, but I do my best when I shoot the gun to take those biases and ignore them. So what are my first impressions of this gun? First and foremost, this thing is weird looking. Man, it looks like it is a blaster from Star Wars. The balance of this gun is really odd. For some reason, there's this huge section behind the grip. Obviously, the slide or the bolt itself, which is inside of the frame, has to reciprocate. It's just odd. When you hold it, the balance is odd. It almost feels like you want to put some type of stock on it and make it an SBR, but that's not what this gun is designed for, and I don't even know if they offer that type of accessory for it. So what is this gun supposed to be? Is it supposed to be a defensive gun? Well, it's chambered in .22. Is it a range toy? Maybe. It's kind of odd. As I said, the balance is weird. It's kind of big. It's definitely not a concealed carry gun. I don't know what this gun is trying to be except a firearm that shoots .22 with a really weird quad stack humongous 33 round magazine that's supposed to be pretty compact. So I don't know what this thing is trying to be, but I give Kel-Tec points for innovation. Every company has to balance innovation and quality. Some companies are quality off the chart with no innovation whatsoever, and some companies are all innovation with no quality, and I think that's what Kel-Tec is. Now, the other thing many people are probably going to complain about, and it's probably my biggest concern about this gun, is the magazine itself. .22 long rifle is a rimmed cartridge, and it's why many times you only get 10 round magazines, because a rimmed cartridge is not designed to be stacked in a box magazine. They just lay on each other kind of weird. So to try to make a quad stack high capacity magazine with a rimmed cartridge, it just doesn't seem like it's going to work, or if it works, it might not be that reliable. So with all of that said, let's talk about the things just here on the bench that I like and don't like about the gun. And I'll try to be positive first. So what do I like about the Kel-Tec CP33? As I've already mentioned, the gun is innovative, and I have to give them a lot of points for that. They're thinking outside the box, and this is how you have giant leaps in technology when it comes to firearms. People that think differently. Eugene Stoner did it with the M16 rifle. Nobody was making guns out of aluminum and polymer before him, and a lot of people thought he was crazy for using them. But now look at us. Aluminum and polymer are just simply the way to go. I also like the fact that there's an M-LOK slot on the bottom for adding accessories. Many pistols just have a 1913 rail. Well, there's a lot of accessories that use M-LOK attachments, and so you can add that to this gun, or you can just put a piece of Picatinny rail down there. I do like that. That's also very forward thinking. Even though I'm not really sure what this gun is trying to be, I like the fact you do have a full-length rail on the top for mounting optics, and the owner of this pistol, Jack, who has linked it to the channel for review, has put on a Trijicon, and that works absolutely fantastic. I love the Trijicons a lot. And the other thing I noticed from just handling it here on the bench is the trigger pull. Man, oh man, does this thing actually have a really, really nice trigger. I'm very impressed with it. Although I kind of slam Kel-Tec and say they're cheap, this trigger feels fantastic. So however they design the mechanism, it feels crisp, it has a very short take-up, and an audible reset. Everything in a trigger that I really like. And finally, it does have a threaded barrel for adding a suppressor if you so wish to suppress it. I like that. If you're gonna have a forward-thinking gun like this, you gotta have the threaded barrel. All right, so let's talk about the things that I don't like. Well, the first thing I don't like is the controls. A lot of the controls here just seem to be in odd places. It does have a heel release. That's not really a deal breaker. I like a lot of European guns with the heel release. This one just seems to be a little bit odd, and that could be because this grip is so long. Even though you're using a quad stack magazine, that should make the grip thick, not long, but it does. And I can't really wrap my hand around that grip fully. It doesn't feel very good. The controls, the slide stop is very small, and when the bolt is back, you can't drop it very easily. I think I can kind of force it down. Nope. You gotta drop the magazine and then it will close. I don't like that. I like to be able to drop the slide without having to drop the magazine, especially in an internal bolt-driven pistol like this. Simply because the bolt is inside, you just can't pull the slide back easily without this odd charging handle. And that's the next thing I want to talk about, the charging handle. The charging handle on this is really cheap and chintzy in my opinion. So you have this grippy surface here in the back, and it pulls out like that with these two little tabs. It's a very cheap and bendable metal. Let's see if I can get that focused. There you go. So that to me does not speak quality. I think it's an innovative idea, but it's not executed very well. And that's just going back to them being a very innovative company, but not executing the ideas. And then finally, the gun just, in my opinion, feels cheap. Now I feel terrible ragging on the gun like this because I really want all the guns that I review to perform well, but just holding it, it feels like a toy. So that's what I like and don't like about it, and my initial impressions and biases. So you guys know everything. I lay it all out there so you guys know I'm trying to be as honest and fair as I possibly can. So now let's get this gun to the range and see how it shoots. I'm going to put one magazine through this thing to get us started. So I am going to be using the red dot. I'm going to load the magazine probably to about 25 rounds because these magazines are absolutely miserable to load. There is no assist lever on the side. So loading these magazines is kind of a pain in the butt. So I think I only got to about 25 on the first mag because I got tired of loading them. It just takes you forever. So the first rounds are going to be at 7 yards, and I'm going to see what type of group I get. I'm hoping it's going to be pretty good with this Trijicon red dot, so let's see what happens. All right, so let's talk about the good first. Well, this gun is exceptionally accurate. I'm really impressed with it. Is it the gun or is it the red dot? I don't know. Normally, I don't shoot that well, but I'm impressed with this thing so far. So I got to give this thing super high marks for accuracy. And like when I dry fired it, the trigger in this thing is really good. So those two things, accuracy and good trigger, well, we're off to a fantastic start. But then there's the elephant in the room. Obviously, the feeding issues. This gun has some feeding issues, which is what I was expecting when it comes to a rimmed cartridge. It was kind of weird. I've never had a malfunction like that. The cartridge came up into the chamber. It was at an angle. It got underneath the extractor, but it wouldn't feed, and then it got caught and jammed in there. I had to drop the magazine, get my knife out, and kind of peel that round out from underneath the extractor. That was really odd. But once I got it out, the gun seemed to run okay. So if this is supposed to be a range toy, I can give it a little bit of pass if it's gonna have those issues, but obviously I don't want that to happen. If I'm gonna spend all of my time loading this magazine, I don't wanna spend all of my time shooting the gun, having to deal with malfunctions. That just doesn't make the gun fun at all. All right, so let's now try for what I refer to as the accuracy portion. I'm going to double the distance of the target and see if this group opens up any. Well, this gun has been so accurate so far, I think it's going to do just fine. I'm going to aim for the head on this IDPA silhouette target and see how I do. Well, it's still really accurate. And yeah, I only shot 12 rounds that time simply because the magazine is just a pain in the butt to load. I think I'm getting a little bit better at it. I'm kind of developing some type of technique, but it still takes forever. It definitely needs some type of loading assist lever. Another thing that I'm noticing is the action of this gun seems to be a little bit slow. I don't know if it's because the recoil spring is very weak, but when I pull the slide back and I let it go, that slide does not go home with a lot of force. It's kind of slow. And when you have the magazine loaded and it's picking up a round, it seems very, very sluggish. It doesn't seem to hinder the performance any. It just seems a little bit slow. I don't know if that's just because, as I said, the recoil springs are kind of weak, or that's just intrinsic to the design. It just has that feeling to me. It just doesn't feel solid. Well, one of the other tests I always like to do when it comes to these 22 long rifle pistols is to see if standard velocity ammunition will run in them. It's really important. Not everybody has the high velocity CCI mini mags. So for this next test, I'm going to run standard velocity CCI. Now, this is a quality ammunition. It should be a little bit slower than supersonic. So sometimes these pistols can take this ammunition and cycle it. Sometimes they can't. But let's see. And I'm going to use the same target again, and this is going to be slower ammunition, so I'm going to see if it affects the accuracy. I'm going to go for the chest on the same IDPA target. Well, I gotta give the gun some credit. It ran the standard velocity. I honestly didn't think it would, but it did, and It was accurate. Something else I've noticed is when the bolt holds open on the last round, maybe because of the nature of the design, you don't feel it. You know, when you're shooting an AR-15 and the bolt holds back, it sounds different, it feels different. Same thing when you're shooting a semi-automatic pistol, you just have that different recoil impulse. On this pistol, you don't have it. You're not really sure you're out of ammunition. It's a weird feel. I can't figure that out. Maybe it's just the velocity of the slide, the weight of the slide, the recoil, I don't know. I don't always feel when the slide is being held back. Well, now I'm going to give my wife Becky a shot. I always say that she's a very different type of shooter than I am, and she looks at guns from a very different perspective. So I always like to get her perspective, see what she has to think. She already said, that looks like a really odd pistol, but she does like 22. So let's give her a shot and see what she thinks. So the first thing she said to me after shooting it was, wow, that's boring. It's kind of an odd statement. She was like, well, it's obviously very accurate. It feels okay in my hand. The grip was a little bit big, but it just wasn't fun. Whatever that means. So I kind of asked her to explain. She said the gun shot well, low recoil, it was very accurate for her, and she said that she loves red dots on rifles, but this red dot almost makes the gun too easy to shoot. There's no skill involved. I can kind of see where she's coming from on that. I've always been personally an iron sights guy myself. I think if you can shoot a gun with iron sights well, that is the true test of a marksman. These red dots honestly do make it a little bit too easy. Overall, she said she had no problem with it. It just was boring and very odd. It just did not feel well in her hands because of the balance of it. So the last test I'm going to do is I'm going to try to shoot this thing fast. I'm going to set the camera out in the range, pointing towards me, and I'm going to load the magazine to full capacity. I'm curious if the slower action of the bolt is going to slow me down. I'm curious how the gun's going to feed, how it's going to function. I'm just going to do a mag dump. And that's simply because I don't think this gun is supposed to be a defensive gun. It's not a concealed carry gun. This is just a range gun. It's a range toy. So if you're going to take this thing to the range, well, why not dump a bunch of ammo through it really, really fast and just have some fun with it? So that's what I'm going to do, and let's see what happens. Having magazine problems. Alright, here we go again. Worked. So the one thing I have noticed is that when these mags are fully loaded, they're typically more unreliable than when you're down in like the last 10 rounds of the magazine. So the more spring pressure in there, the more likely you are to have some type of feeding issue. I didn't have any problems with ejection. It was almost always feeding. And I think it's just a magazine problem. And it's just a problem that 22 is a rimmed cartridge. I came up with a way of loading the magazines a little bit faster, and you really kind of have to have one of these in your hand to kind of know what I'm talking about. But when it comes to the feed lips, you can't load these, even though it's a double stack magazine like you can an AR where you just pop the rounds in. You have to feed it like a 9mm, and when you have to push down on the front of the case with the rim, that gives you the fastest and the best feeding option. It really kind of starts to point the bullets down, but every so often I have to tap the back of the magazine like this, and it seems to straighten everything out. And I do think some of that could be fixed with just a simple assist lever, so you can take a little bit of that spring tension off as you're loading it to get those rounds in there. You just have to also be careful that the rounds are pointing in the right direction. The gun is just too fidgety when it comes to loading, I think, to be a viable self-defense gun and anything else besides a range toy. So, what are my final thoughts of the CP33 by Kel-Tec? Well, some things about this gun, as I said, impress me. A really good trigger on this thing. And who's going to say that they don't want a high capacity, really an ultra high capacity, 22 long rifle range toy? Well, I think Kel-Tec is really innovative with that, and I give them a lot of points. It has a lot of features that I like. The accessory rail on the top, as I said, to put any type of optics on there. You got that M-lock slot on the bottom. You got the threaded barrel on the top. You got that huge and very innovative magazine. You really want to like this. And really, to be honest with you, some of that won me over. I had a better range time with this gun than I was expecting to have. I don't like the fact I had so many feeding issues, and I think that would be kind of a deal breaker for me. If I'm going to have to spend most of my range time loading the magazines, well, when I'm shooting the gun, I don't want to have to be dealing with malfunctions. And this gun, I kind of felt, has a lot of malfunctions for what it is. It's also a Kel-Tec, and that's just what I've come to expect from Kel-Tec. Is it innovative? Yes. Is it forward-thinking? Yes. Does it have a lot of cool features? Yes. But the execution of it is odd. It's big, it's unbalanced, it looks like something out of a Star Trek or a Star Wars movie. Maybe that's positive for you, maybe that's a negative for you. For me, it looks just odd. It feels odd in the hand. The grip, I don't think, is designed very ergonomically, but I understand why this is such a popular gun, because it's a Kel-Tec. It's affordable. And I know a lot of the people out there that are going to be defending this gun in the comments who own one or maybe want one are going to say, it's awesome, it's the most amazing thing since sliced bread. And that's okay, because they also have a bias as well. Many times when people are invested in products or bought a product, even if they're not 100% happy with it, will defend it because they bought it and they feel invested and they don't want to say and admit, I made a mistake. I'm not saying anybody made a mistake buying this, but I think if you're going to buy this, you have to know what it is. What is its philosophy? What's it going to do in your collection? I definitely wouldn't conceal carry this. I wouldn't use it for a home defense pistol. It's just a range toy. And if that's what you want to spend your money on, and really not a lot of money, then that's okay. I just feel like for fun, there's much better 22s out there that are a little bit more ergonomic, maybe not have as much capacity, but I think are more fun. Now, I cannot fault this for the accuracy. This gun is super accurate. I do love that about it. So, on my star system, how am I going to rate the CP33 by Kel-Tec? Well, it did better than I thought it would. I'm going to give this 3.5 stars out of 5. I really want to give it 3 because I don't know what I would use this pistol for. It has an identity crisis in my opinion. But because if it's great trigger and great accuracy, I just got to give it those bonus points. 3.5 stars. I don't think you're wasting your money on one if you really want one for your collection. It's not a gun that necessarily tickles my fancy, but I can see why it might other people. It's different, and sometimes different is just cool, it's new and fascinating. But maybe if another company took this design and amped up and fixed some of the problems that I have with it, like its construction, I can definitely see this being a very innovative pistol. I just wish Kel-Tec would spend a little bit more money in the construction and the quality of it. But besides that, it's an okay pistol as a range toy. So there you go. My range report, CP33, high capacity, 22, pistol, range toy, whatever you want it for. But there you go. So do you guys own one of these? And what do you think of my honest review of the Kel-Tec? Some of you guys are going to say I'm not fair to it because I already have a bias. And that's a fair assumption. But as you can see, I did find things about this gun that I really liked. And I shoot it pretty darn well. So I got to sing its praises where it deserves to be praised. And I got to say, some things about it are just really nice. So there you go. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments section below. And you guys think I was fair. So as always, thanks for watching.